So this is the show, and that's why I do it, because in spirituality, a lot of people have questions like, who are my spirit guides, and what's the astral realm, or anything spiritual. So if you're watching this, please feel free to write in, um, and I will live channel your answers, which is the best thing ever. Like, where you can actually live channel, and that's what I do for a living. So what I do, in case you're wondering, is I teach people how to channel. And the reason why I do this is because basically I dedicate my life to teaching people how to channel, because in my opinion, learning how to channel is the foundation to all spirituality. You need to know how to channel on a really good level, on a really high level, and that's why it's really important. So today, what we're going to do is ask some questions from the viewers. Some of the questions have been pre-recorded. I'm just going to share this page real quick here. Give me 2 seconds. Copy this. Put this in here. Some people have asked questions before in the past, and some people have could also, if you want to ask any questions, just go ahead and write in, and you can do that. So I'm just going to share this. All right, here we go. All right. Okay, welcome. Let's go. I posted that. Okay, so some of the people, some of my students, if you're watching this, go ahead and say hello. Write your name down in the bottom. Say your name, where you're from. I'll give you a shout out. And one of the questions that some of my students ask is, what is your intuition? What does following your intuition mean? What is that like? What is that all about? So back in the day, like, I've been doing this for nearly 20 years now. And in the early days, I would have people go, "Oh, just follow your intuition this, follow your intuition that," like it was some easy thing. And I'd be like, after like a few years of this, I'd almost get like really upset. I'd be like, "Okay, just get lost already. Like, that's so annoying. I don't even know what you mean. Like, it's so ambiguous, so abstract. What does follow your intuition mean?" And now, what I can actually do is what I teach my students to do is actually learn how to channel different aspects of themselves and also their spirit guides. So this way, when someone says, "Okay, what is your intuition?" you can actually access your intuition in a really cool, awesome way. Um, so what your intuition is, it's basically it's either like your soul. You get information from your soul, so I'll teach you how to channel your soul. You can get access from your higher self, so your higher self could actually be giving you intuitive hits, as they call it. And then another source of where your intuition could be coming from is actually one of your spirit guides. So in general, my experience training thousands of people over the years is that most people have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides during any one season of their life. Some have 2, some have 6, but in general, it's that 3 to 5 kind of range. And what happens is each one of our guides help us in a different area of our life. So if spirit guide is coming to us, and again, like, sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I don't know, I feel a presence, but I don't know who it is or what it is." That's why I do my training. So you can actually identify, okay, which guide is it? What are they here for? How are they here to help me? What area of my life are they here to help me? What is their energy signature components? All that kind of stuff. And then get messages from them, like actual real practical, real life messages on how to live your life, finances, relationships, career, health, purpose. What am I here for? What's the reason for incarnating? All those things. That's what your spirit guides are here to help you with. Anything and everything you can imagine, they're here to help you with this. And so when you get really good at channeling your spirit guides and your soul and your higher self, that is your intuition. That is your intuition, rather than it just being some random thing like, "Oh, well, what is my intuition? I don't really know." Well, now you can actually go, "Okay, this is my intuition. It's coming from my soul, and I'm getting this." Like, your soul is one of those aspects that it's kind of like it's it's kind of like the quiet whisper of your soul. It's not one of those parts of you that's going to be like really aggressive in your face. So it takes a little bit of practice to calm your mind down, drop into your body, focus on, and I'm going like this right here because this is where your soul actually resides. It's called the seat of your soul, and it resides in this area in your sternum area. And you focus down with your eyes, you focus in your body, you focus on your soul, and you really learn to tune into your soul. Why, ask it questions. What is the meaning of this? Why am I here? When am I meant to get out of this lifetime? Why did my soul, why did it choose to incarnate? Ask it these kind of questions, and really connect with it on a regular basis. Every morning when I get up in the morning, I tell myself I love you, I love me. I do some Reiki on myself or self healing, and just let my, like, really love on myself, and especially my soul, because our soul really needs that. Like, it's one of those aspects that, it's gone through many lifetimes. Most likely it's living a life can be hard at times and challenging, like we all know. We've all probably gone through it. And so to just let it know that, I love you, I love you. And one of the things that I do when I am really struggling with a situation, let's say I go and things don't work out quite right, or maybe I put my foot in my mouth, or maybe I do some dumbass kind of thing, and I do, which happens because we're human, we're fallible, things happen. A little tip, if you're watching this, you might want to write this down, is what I say to myself whenever I do something like this is, I love you anyway. I love you anyway. And just, love myself through it, whatever it is that I'm going through, whatever struggles I'm going through. I just say to myself, hey Ken, you know what, I love you anyway. And this really helps me to not be so hard on myself. I don't know if you like this or you've ever experienced this, but back in the way back in the day, I used to be like really hard on myself. I used to beat myself up. I used to be like, "You dummy, you're so stupid," and all this self hatred kind of stuff. I don't do that anymore. I cut that out. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. But I still kind of get upset about things, and stuff like that. But then what do? I say to myself, I love you anyway. And really loving myself back to health. And that's the one of the best healing ways to, if you're, you want to do healing, there's a whole bunch of ways that I suggest. One of them is to get like a journal and write things down on a regular basis, what you're going through, write down your emotions, your feelings of whatever situation, circumstance you're going through. Another way that I do suggest, which is one of my favorite, is that if you're going through major struggles, what I used to do before was I used to run from all my emotions. I used to run from all the pain. And now what I do is I go, okay, no more running, Ken. No, you're not running. Instead, what I do is I just sit. I go find somewhere, a table, a bench, a chair, anywhere, my bed, I don't care. Just sit somewhere, but don't run. Sit in my feelings, allow myself to feel those feelings, and not run at all. I'm not running from my pain anymore. I'm not running from my struggles. And the reason why this helps is because what it does is it allows that those emotions to flow through you and move through you. So you're not just sitting there and you're not just like distracting or avoiding them or all that, but then you just let them sit, let them move through you by sitting in your emotions. And the uckier, stinkier, grosser the stuff that you're going through is, good. Sit in it some more. Okay. So this is the Ask Ken Show. If you're watching, please say hello. Type in the comments where you're from, what you do, and I'll give you a shout out. So your intuition is what? It's a combination of your soul, your higher self, which is about 1 foot above your head, and a combination of one of your spirit guides, or a combination of any of those sources. Okay. Um, Do your spirit guides have a time limit of how long they'll be your guide for? The answer is yes and no. So what a lot of people in the spirituality industry want to do is they want to go, okay, like it's absolute yes, or it's an absolute no. And do your spirit guides have a time limit? The answer is no. Like, they really don't. Like, there's no. So let me say it a different way: is your spirit guides, they're people like you and I, just in non-physical form. When you die and you cross over, you'll go to the astral realm to be with your soul family. But while you're incarnated, certain members of your soul family will help and assist you while you're incarnated. You can have a spirit guide that's with you for your entire lifetime, or you can have a spirit guide that's with you for a season of your life. And when that season's over, it's not that they'll leave you, but they'll step back so that a new spirit guide can come in and help you with your next phase of evolution in the next season of your life. And then you go on living your life, doing whatever. And then the next major season of your life, that one of your spirit guides might step back, and then a new guide might step in. And then when that season's done, and then you enter the next season of your life, one of your spirit guides might step back, and another might step forward, and so on and so on. So you could have one spirit guide that's with you for your entire life, or you could have one spirit guide that's with you for different seasons of your life. And the reason I want to make sure that this is clear is because, again, a lot of people think that, there's these weird theories out there where, everyone has a spirit guide that's with them from birth. I haven't found that to be true with myself or my clients. It's possible, and I have had that happen where I'm like, okay, this guy's been with you your whole life. But that's not true for everyone. A lot of times as we go through different seasons of our life, we have different guides. And sometimes we have, by the time we get into our teens or 20s or 40s or whatever it might be, we may have all new guides by then, to help us with those next phase of our evolution. So I'm really careful about, saying like, yes, everyone has a spirit guide for the rest of their life. That's not necessarily true, is what I found. But what you can do, and this is the power of channeling, is as you get to know your guides, let's say, like I mentioned before, we have 3 to 5 spirit guides, but let's say in this example, you have 4 spirit guides. Okay, so you have 4 spirit guides. But then I take my students through very specific exercises on how to get to know their guides really, really, really well. And then the reason I do that is a number of reasons. One is because when you get to know your spirit guides really well, then you get to know which area of their life they're here to help you, and what capacity they're here to help you, and how you can really work with them in great detail. Or they can work with you in great detail to help you improve your life. So that's one of the bigger reasons. Another big reason why I teach people how to channel their spirit guides is because if one of your guides steps back and a new one steps in, then you're aware of that. And you're like, oh, hey, I have a new spirit guide. And what do you do when you get a new spirit guide? You celebrate. And why do you celebrate? Because you're entering a new season of your life, a new phase of your life. Like, this is exciting. Like, ask your spirit guide, okay, I'm in this new phase of my life. What's new? What's different? What should I be watching out for? Why are you here? Like, how are you here to help me? And get excited about this, because you are entering a new phase of your life. And that's a good thing. Like, this guide isn't just coming in randomly. They're coming in because they are here to help you with this new phase of your life, and getting to know them really well. Then you know how they're here to help you in this new phase of your life. Okay, so that's why you want to get to know your spirit guides really well. And when you do get to know your spirit guides really well, like, it will improve your life drastically. And then, of course, there's following their guidance. And my students some of you might be asking, well, how do I know the difference between my spirit guides and my own stuff, like my own thoughts? And that's a little tricky. I get it. I know what you're saying. So there's several activities that I take my students through specifically designed for this. And the reason why is because over time, as you practice, you're like, okay, this is my spirit guide, and this is my thoughts, and this is my spirit guide, and this is my thoughts. This is my spirit guide, and this is my thoughts, myself, my own stuff. And over time, that gap will widen. And then as you get better at it, you can definitely discern. You're like, oh, no, I definitely know this is my spirit guide because of this. And I could tell the different qualities, the characteristics, the aspects of this spirit guide, whether it's male or female and all that other stuff, compared to my own stuff, my own thoughts, how I think. My thoughts are maybe more erratic, more quicker. They go in a loop. They say the same thing over and over again. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but I know I can. But where my spirit guides usually are more specific, they're more direct, they're more thoughtful and precise on what they want to say. They're usually calmer, relaxed, and on and on and on. But over time, you can tell the difference between your spirit guides and your own stuff. Okay. I want to give a shout out to Carol Horton. Hello, Carol, and also Pamela as well. Hey, Pamela, just mention where you're from. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to write in your questions, anything about spirituality, and I will live channel the answers. This is called the Ask Ken Show, Welcome, welcome, welcome. And do your spirit guides and angels use you as a conduit for healing? The answer again isn't always, but they can. There are certain circumstances and situations where they can. So here's the reason why: is because what I found. So I do healing training. Uh, Western Australia, woohoo! Hey, Carol, I love Australia. I love my Australian friends and the people there. Okay, so I do actually train people on healing and how to do healing. And um, one of the things that I've noticed when I do healing on my clients is that, let's say this is my client. Okay, so this is my client. I always know who I'm working with when I'm doing my healing sessions, because just going, oh, I just call in the ancestors and the healing guides and the angels and anyone who wants to be of assistance that's of the light. That sounds great. That sounds wonderful. I haven't found that works very effectively. Like just being randomly calling in whoever. You can go for it, but what I found that works more, that where you get better results, is when you actually know who's coming in to help you with which part of the healing and which components, which part. So, for example, I might sense that their guide wants to come in and work with that person. So this person's guide wants to come in. Not everyone, but I've found a few people once in a while will have a healing guide, a spirit guide that's really good at doing healing on the person or other people, which is really cool. But again, not all guides can do that. Just to give you some background, in the astral realm, it's actually really difficult to be a spirit guide. Like, it's very, very hard, and sometimes it's us, but it's also them. They're learning as well. People have this weird theory that, oh, spirit guides, they can do anything and everything. Not necessarily. They're still evolving in the astral realm. So they actually go through a lot of training on how to be a spirit guide, and they may do it, dozens of times, hundreds of times, maybe even thousands of times. And as they are your spirit guide and they help you over, or you or other people over and over again, they get better at becoming a spirit guide. Well, some of these spirit guides, over time, as they're evolving as a spirit, as a soul, they can actually become really good healing spirit guides. They're rare. They do happen. And again, like I said, you may not have one for your whole life, but you might have one for a season of your life. So let's say, for example, in this example, their spirit guide might want to work directly on him. So I'm like, okay, I know that this guide wants to work on him. Sometimes my guide wants to work directly on him. And of course, we do permissions and all that stuff. That's really important. That's level 2 stuff, and level 3, and actually level 4. Anyways, and then also, sometimes my spirit guides need to work through me to work on my client, or they can work on the client directly. Okay, so can your spirit guides work on you directly, on that person directly? Yes. Do they sometimes need to work through somebody? Yes. Same thing with ascended masters or other, like dragons, for example, or even angels. So let me give you an example of an angel. So sometimes an angel is very, very big, high capacity, very high frequency, a being that is very, very high capacity, high frequency. So what they do is, because they're at such a high frequency, is sometimes they need us humans to be a conduit or a transformer. So those big high voltage power lines, the DC current, 10,000 direct current voltage going through. Well, it's current, but very, very high voltage power lines that are going through. And then what do? They go to this area. They go to a transformer, and in that transformer they are transformed from this really high voltage direct current, DC current, and then they're transformed into alternating current, and that would be 110 in North America, 220 in other parts of the world, like Europe and Asia and things like that. And then it's more usable at the 110 or 220 voltage, where you can plug in your appliances like your toaster and different things like that. So it won't blow it at 10,000 volts DC. So this is sometimes what will happen is, when I'm working with clients, I'm like, okay, oh, this angel wants to come in to help and assist. And then they come in and assist. Sometimes they can work directly on the client. Like I said earlier, they can work directly on them. But sometimes they need us as humans to be that transformer, to take this really high energy that they are at and work through us as a conduit. And then now we're doing the healing on the client with the angel working through us. Okay. There's this theory out there about where people talk about, well, oh, I'm a healer and I don't actually do any healing. I'm just the, the conduit for the healing to happen. And I find that that's somewhat true. It can be true. And I do agree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. Here's a couple things that I've found with that. One is that this person's a soul. And just like our spirit guides, like I talked about earlier, where our spirit guides, they could be healing spirit guides, they have healing abilities. Well, this person could do healing on themselves, self healing. I'm a soul. I can also do healing, also working on the person, or I can work with other souls and beings. Again, other guides, my guides, dragons, angels, things like that, to do the healing either on myself and or on my client. Okay, so I'm always careful about using absolutes where people are like, oh no, I don't actually people who call themselves a healer isn't actually a healer, they're just a conduit. And I don't disagree, that is true at times. But again, with channeling, you can check this stuff and find out, okay, in this circumstance, no, I actually need to do the healing myself on the client. And I ask, do I have the ability? And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And if I don't have the ability, then what do? I ask, okay, well, who does have the ability? Is there somebody who can help me? Somebody like one of my spirit guides, one of their spirit guides. Is there a dragon who can help me? Is there an angel who can help me? Who can help me? Because bottom line is, we want to get results. The client's coming to the healer for results. They want to get results. In general, they don't care how the results happen. They just want to get results. So me as a healing practitioner, I want to do whatever I need to do to, and again, always working in the light, making sure you're working with angels and souls that are of the light, all that kind of stuff. So I'm always checking though, but being very specific on who I'm working with and then what parts of the healing. So with healing, there could be many, many different things that are causing the problem. Let's say somebody has anxiety. Some people will be like, okay, I have anxiety. And let's say you have 10 people in a lineup and they all have the same challenge, anxiety, in this example. I'm just picking a random example. Um, with channeling, I can check and scan each one of those 10 people and find out exactly what they need to help them with the anxiety. What I found is that oftentimes it's not just one thing that's causing the anxiety. Oftentimes it's what's called multifaceted. There's many things that are causing the anxiety. So what I do as a healer with channeling is I scan the person and I'm like, okay, where is the root cause of what's going on with them? What is the root cause? But then what I do is I take it a step further. I say, okay, of these things, all these different things that are causing the anxiety, which one is the biggest, most prominent one that needs to be addressed first? So rather than, if you think of like a big jar, there's a big jar, and in those jars, there's grains of sand, there's pebbles, there's rocks, and then there's big boulders. Well, what I want to do as a healer, and some like other healers, they might just pick off the grains of sand. And don't get me wrong, like every little bit helps over the years and the decades. It all makes a difference. It really does. But what I want to do, I want to get the most results, the biggest bang for my buck, the biggest results possible. So I go for the big boulders first. Let's go with those big suckers right out first and get those big components that are causing the anxiety in this example. And then I can always go back and pick out the pebbles and the rocks and the grains of sand later. I can always go back for that later. But let's get the big stuff to get the big benefit for the client. How do I do that? By knowing who I'm working with and then asking, okay, what's the biggest, most prominent thing that's causing the anxiety in this case? And then I knock those off and then I go back for these other ones later if I have time. Okay. Another question. So if you're watching, give a shout out, say your name and where you're from. I'll say hello to you. And this is called the Ask Ken Show. So please just write in your questions, type them in. And if it's a question, I will live channel the answer. You can also check me out on channelinginc.com. I have all sorts of courses, animal communication, healing training. I do the Ascension group healing. I have all sorts of different channeling workshops, including certification workshops. All right, let's see what the next question is. What does it mean when you dream of someone you know? Ooh, that's a good question. So, dream interpretation is something I do also teach. If you're interested in that, um, dream interpretation is something that basically, when you're in a dream state, a couple things about dreams. When you're in a dream state, sometimes a dream is just a dream. It's not actually, it doesn't have meaning. Sometimes it's just your psyche trying to work things out, trying to process things. So don't always think that every dream has meaning, but sometimes it does. When you're lucid dreaming, you can actually go, and what lucid dreaming means is you're kind of like conscious of what you're dreaming, and you can actually manipulate your dreams. You can converse with spirit guides in your dreams and other people in your dreams. You can astral travel. There's lots of things called dream walking. It's basically the same thing, just in a dream state, as astral traveling, dream walking, same thing. um, so when you have a dream come in and you're dreaming about somebody else, there's a couple things that could be happening. One is, it could be your psyche, working things out with that person. Even though you're not connected to that person, you're just trying to figure out that such situation, circumstance with that person. That's one thing that it could be. Another thing that it could be is, in your dream state, you could actually astral travel and be communicating with that other person who is alive, and they might be aware, they might not be aware, they might be sleeping as well, and you're actually conversing with them in spirit form, like soul to soul, but you're astral traveling and you go and communicate with them. But to you, it just appears like it's a dream, but it's not. It's actually astral traveling. So you're conscious of it, you're aware of it, and that's why you remember it. Another thing that could also happen is, when you dream about somebody, it's not always about that person. So this is a caution here. If you notice that you have a dream about somebody, just don't assume it's always about that person. Sometimes in our dream state, what we'll do, our psyche will put in a person into that position, so that in that dream we can work it out with that person, but they're just kind of like filling in as kind of like a person that we can work it out, but it's not about that person at all. It's actually might be about another person, or may not be about anybody else at all, or it might be about our internal stuff, just trying to resolve, maybe some anger issues, or other challenges that we're having, setting boundaries, or whatever it might be. And that person's just playing that role, but it's not actually about that person. It's just a representation of somebody that could step in to help you with that in your mind. Okay. Pamela has a great question. I'm super curious about the Mandela effect. Is it real? And the answer is yes. So now we're getting into a topic called timelines. This is level 3 stuff. What timelines are is, there's many different. Let me just grab this up here. So timelines are basically, you have a timeline. And the reason why I'm going up is because hopefully we're evolving in the forward direction, upward direction, not the downward direction. Hopefully, not all of us do, but it's impossible, by the way, to be incarnated and not evolve. It's impossible not to evolve. Like, everybody evolves, whether they are on this upward trajectory or downward trajectory. That's a different story, and it's not good or bad, right or wrong necessarily. But we all evolve, and of course, if you're like me, and evolution's more like this, like up and down, or twisted and windy. Welcome to life. That's all what it's about. And then, hopefully as we get healthier and we do our healing and clearing, then we can be intentional about evolving in an upward direction. And again, when we screw up and mess up, which we do because we're human, then what do? I love you, Ken. You love yourself through it. It's okay. I screwed up, messed up, whatever. Just love myself through it. Don't beat myself up anymore. And if I can, make things right and keep evolving on that upward trajectory. Okay, so is the Mandela effect, is it real? And the answer is yes. So now we're talking about what can happen is, in our life, we have these things called timelines. So think of all these timelines that are running parallel, and there's many hundreds, if not thousands, of different timelines that are running parallel at the same time, simultaneously. And let's say we make a major life decision. So I go and I decide that I'm going to commit a crime, and join a gang or something like that. I don't know, I'm just making up some random example. So then I do that. Now I might be in this timeline, and then I might jump into another timeline. This other timeline maybe isn't as healthy for me. I start doing crime and other things, and then maybe I jump into another timeline, and then next thing I know, I'm doing things I never thought I would have done, and then I end up in prison or something like that. Okay, so that's one example. But let's say it could also work the other way. I'm in this timeline, and then I decide to take a training or go to a healing retreat or something like that. And then next thing I know, I jump into another timeline, this timeline, and then I'm continuing on, and then things are going great, but I decide to do more healing, more training, more self-evolution, things like that, learn to channel my spirit guides, and then I jump into a higher timeline, and next thing I know, I'm evolving like in an upward trajectory. Okay, so what happens on a mass scale is that let's say, for example, there's a scientist or an inventor or something like that, and he decides to, he's working on the branding of Coca-Cola. I'm just making up a random example. So here's this big brand, Coca-Cola, and then in one timeline, what happens is, maybe he starts using drugs, and then his life falls apart, breaks up with his wife, and ends up doing other things, and then he ends up quitting Coca-Cola. He's not a branding manager or marketer for them anymore because he made poor decisions, and so he ended up in another timeline. Then let's say, for example, so what can happen is in one timeline, this branding manager, he decided to change the logo of Coca-Cola to modernize it. So now we're in this timeline, and here we are in 2023, and we're looking at the brand of Coca-Cola, and we're like, oh yeah, it's changed so many years ago. But then in this other timeline where he ended up, using drugs, breaking up with his wife, getting fired from Coca-Cola, going to jail, whatever other stuff, and he never ended up, pushing Coca-Cola to brand or to change their branding, their logo. So the logo stayed the same. So that's an example of where we, in this timeline, we look at Coca-Cola's brand and it looks like this certain way, but in this other timeline, it's different, or the other way around. And you're like, Fruit Loops, for example. We're like, well, what's going on there? Like, I don't remember it being I'm like, why is it this way now? And stuff like that. So what we do is we can actually and this actually happened to me where one time it's happened more than once, but this one time in particular where I was dreaming again, but dreaming, what happened was I skipped into another timeline of myself. And what happened was I was living in Winnipeg at the time where I grew up, 25 years I grew up there, but I never did end up going to Alberta and recovering, and all that stuff, and having, I had addiction problems and alcohol problems and all that, and I never did recover from that. So I was still kind of in Winnipeg, going through the motions. I'd never grieved my father's death in 2001, and I was really sad, and I actually was living this, but it wasn't some dream. I actually jumped into my other doppelganger's timeline and was living and watching it through his eyes, and I was just like, oh my goodness. And he had a child, but it was like a split custody situation, and he wasn't really paying attention to his child or my child, like it was me, but just in a different timeline. And he was just kind of going through the motions of life, and he was really sad and just kind of getting by, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Winnipeg, and just like right off of Portage Avenue, and kind of just, living his life, going through the motions, but not really satisfied or anything like that. And definitely was not into spirituality. And that's where I really got to experience what timelines really are. That was one of my first, most profound experiences ever. And from that point forward, because I woke up and I'm like, that's not a dream. What just happened? And then I channel my guides and like, oh, Ken, you jumped timelines briefly. And I'm like, oh, that's what happened. That's crazy. And literally this stuff is real. So that's how Mandela effects happen, is because in that other timeline, let's say that Ken, he never did channeling. He doesn't teach channeling training, all that. But look how many lives I've affected in a positive way. And so those people could gone out and change different things with different companies, different brandings, different things like that. And that's why the Mandela effect actually is real. And it's super cool and fascinating to study and examine. And actually you can just check with your spirit guides on different Mandela effects. It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's pretty wild. See? If you are watching and you have any questions, please type in your questions. Also, if you're watching, please just type in your name and where you're from so I can give you a shout out. I would love to say hello to you. My name is Ken Lewicki of channelinginc.com. That's my website. Please feel free to check it out. Also, I'm on all the social media, as you can imagine. So just look up my name, Ken Lewicki, and you'll find me. I try to post a lot of good, positive stuff. All right. Let's see if we have another question here. Um, oh, hi, Danielle from Alberta Beach. Hello, hello. That's Alberta. Welcome, welcome. I think that's just outside of somewhere. I don't know. Hi, Colleen. Great to see you. Thank you for saying hello. Oh, hey, Ron. Thank you, Ron from Canada. What part of Canada are you from, Ron? Oh, yes. Lynn is. In Thunder Bay, Ontario. Yes, she was from Alberta originally and decided to head out to Thunder Bay. Welcome, welcome, Lynn. Okay, so let's get on to our next question. Do you make contracts with people you incarnate with for your whole life? So let me shorten this question that one of my clients asked is, do you make contracts with people? Yes. Yes, you can, but not necessarily. So this is a very sophisticated question. It goes into Akashic Record stuff, and I've taught Akashic Records training, certification programs, all sorts of stuff. I love Akashic Records; it's amazing. So what can happen is we can have a past life with somebody, and in that past life is we can make different contracts, deals, and agreements with people. So we can say, somebody, let's say my wife, she's on her deathbed and she's dying of a sickness, in the 1800s. And I say to her, I promise I will be with you forever. I promise that. I'm getting goosebumps right now. Oh, like major goosebumps. So I promise I will be with you forever. And I make this vow with her. And I promise I'll never leave you. And then what happens is she eventually dies of this sickness. And then eventually, a few years or decades later, I die. But that contract, I said it so much that I mean it. It's written in, like, almost like written in stone in my Akashic records. And then here we come to this lifetime. I could be a male, I could be a female. She could be a male, she could be a female. She could be. I come across. We bump into each other somehow through chance or whatever it might be, or not chance. Wink, wink. So we bump into each other, and then all of a sudden I have this attraction. Like there's something about you. I need to keep this commitment. So then what can happen is, and it could be in a healthy way where, like, I feel like I owe her and I said I would never leave you, but she might be in another relationship. I might be in another relationship, or it just may not be able to, but I still feel this need, like I need to make up to her because of something that happened in a past lifetime. But I don't realize this because it's all subconscious. This is our consciousness. This is our subconsciousness. So I don't realize it because it's all subconscious why I feel this need to make this up to this person. So we get together, we hang out, we're just friends, all that. But I feel like I always need to make it up to her, but I don't know what it is or what I need to make up to her. And then through Akashic Records healing and clearing, I could clear that Akashic Records so I can just be free. I could be free for me, she can be free for her, and then we could just develop in a healthy way, like the way that our relationship is meant to develop, organically and healthy, and a non without having all this stuff affecting or interfering with this lifetime. So the question is, do you make contracts with people you incarnate with for your whole life? So the answer, like I just answered there, is you can. It can be for your whole entire life. And the way that this question was answered was, one of my clients, she asked about her spouse. So they're together. Their marriage is rocky. It's not going very well, and she feels obligated to stay in that marriage. And that's where that question came from. Like, do I need to stay and fulfill this contract that I made with this person? And the answer isn't a simple, easy yes or no. So this is where the healing and clearing comes in, because what you can do, You could do your own healing internally, which I do recommend. If the other person, the spouse, wants to do their healing, great. Ideally, and also in all relationships, but this isn't the case, is ideally each one is doing their own healing and clearing their own stuff, and you two are growing together. That's not always the case. But either way, what I recommend to my students is whether they are or not, you just keep doing your healing and clearing, because that's what really matters. And then what can happen is with the Akashic record stuff is people from a past life can be actually that like this agreement you made from a past life could be so like imposing that you feel like you can't break up or move on in your life with this marriage, this situation, because you feel so bounded to it. And sometimes it's because of loyalty or society or other things, but sometimes it can be actually from a contract or agreement you made in a past lifetime or they made in a past lifetime. But with Akashic records healing, you can heal that or clear that contract, clear that agreement that you made in that past lifetime. So now, if you want to stay, you're free to stay. If you want to leave, you're free to leave. It's a lot easier because you don't have that, like that, that feeling that you have to do it. And the same thing can happen also with places to live. You may have said in a past lifetime, I'm going to go to this certain country. I'm going to go there no matter what. Or maybe you go there once and then you leave and you're like, no, I'm going to go there. I made a vow or an agreement. And then in this lifetime, you feel so drawn to this other country, even though in this new lifetime, you've made new contracts, deals, agreements, new evolutionary path, all that stuff. Like I said, like new timeline that you're on and all that kind of stuff. So now you're feeling obligated that you have to go to this country, but it's really because it's from a past life. So this is what I call land anchors. Land anchors can be from this lifetime. They can be from past lifetimes. Most likely they're from past lifetimes. And you clear those land anchors so that now if you want to go to this other country or move to this other country, you can, but you're not feeling obligated to it. You're also not feeling obligated to stay in the current location that you're at. So the land anchors are a really important thing. And oftentimes land anchors are past life stuff, are related to Akashic records. Again, contracts, deals, agreements. So if you're watching, this is the Ask Ken Show. Please say hi. Please write where you're from. Hello, Ron from Saskatchewan. Thank you for tuning in. And Jen from Black Falls, Alberta. That's Alberta, I believe. And thank you for tuning in. Welcome, Alberta, Canada, and Saskatchewan, Canada. If you have any questions, type in your questions and I will live channel the answers. Okay. Oh, Wendy from Maine, USA. Hey, Wendy. Welcome. Maine is a beautiful state in the US. I love it. Okay, so Pamela wants to know, what does it mean when you get goosebumps? So as earlier, I got major goosebumps there when I was talking about somebody I made a vow with, a female I made a vow with in a past lifetime, and I felt the need to, I'm getting them again. Okay, so what do goosebumps mean? Great question. Sometimes it can mean nothing. I know that's not what some of you want to hear, but that's actually can be the case. Again, I'm always careful about, people want to try to attach meaning to something, to everything. Like one of my clients said to me one time, she's like, Ken, sometimes a paper cut's just a paper cut. And I'm like, yeah, totally. Like sometimes, like not everything has meaning. So for example, you might, walk by, there was this time I was walking by a park and I saw all these feathers, like a big whole bunch of feathers. And I'm looking, I'm going, wow. And if I was just, spiritual, but I didn't know how to channel, I'd go, oh, that must be a sign from my guides or the angels or whatever, and assume that was the case. But what did I do? I checked with my spirit guides and they said, no, that's nothing to do with us, Ken. In this case, it's probably just a cat who mauled a bird, and you're seeing the aftermath of it all, but it has nothing to do with us. So I didn't attach a meaning to it when it didn't have one, but there are other times when it does. It legitimately does have meaning, and there is a meaning. And so I check with my spirit guides as to when that is. Same thing with goosebumps. Sometimes I get goosebumps because it's just cold or other reasons, but oftentimes, like in this case, there's somebody in one of my spirit guides is actually the one who gave me goosebumps. So again, always know the source of your information. Where am I getting this information? Notice I'm not guessing. I'm always checking, where am I getting this information from? And she gave me goosebumps because we had a past life together where I made that kind of similar vow where I said, I'll never leave you. I'll be with you forever. And then, of course, she died. And then, but that, she's saying, okay, she's telling me right now that actually, in this case, it wasn't like a bad vow or like one that's detrimental to me in this case. So it's fine. I'm like, okay, because if it was, what would I do? I'd go into my Akashic records. I'd work with the Lord of the Akashic records, and I'd go in and heal and clear it. Okay. So not goosebumps don't always have meaning, but oftentimes what goosebumps are is it's your guides trying to get your attention, or confirming that you're correct and on the right path. Or it could be from angels or other things like that, dragons and different kind of sprites, fairies, dragons. So our guides, like I said earlier, it's actually really hard to be a spirit guide. So when a spirit guide it is in spirit form, they're still learning, they're still growing, they're still evolving, they're still trying to figure out how to be a spirit guide for the best of their ability. Oh, sorry, just give me a second here. Just did something. Let me just fix something. Gotta just do this here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so our spirit guides, because it's really hard to be a spirit guide, they try to get our attention, and they try to do this in all sorts of different ways. For example, they might give us goosebumps, like I just said earlier. They might show us numbers, like repeat. They might show us signs. Some people have this theory, like they say, and it's nothing wrong with this, but I find it kind of like an amateur way. I will only do this if you give me 3 signs in a row about this, then I will do it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty demanding of your guides. And they can come through for you. But again, you have to be aware of that and know and be able to discern whether it's your spirit guides or not. But what I like to do is when I get messages from my guides to do something, I just do it right away. I don't even I just okay, I got the message once. Once is enough. I got it. I'm doing it. Let's go. And just run with it. So there's a whole bunch of different ways they might give you messages through, or try to get your attention through animals or insects, or through other people. And I could go on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of different ways your spirit guides try to get your attention. But the key is, again, knowing how to channel your spirit guides so you can check whether it's them or whether it's just a random thing that you just noticed or whatever. Okay, so Jen has a question. Jen from Black Falls, Alberta. She wants to know anything my spirit guides want to tell me, especially in regards to my love life. Okay, so this is not a reading kind of questionnaire. This is about just general kind of general spirituality questions, anything to do with spiritual stuff. Please ask questions like what does it mean when you get goosebumps, or do I have how do contracts, deals, and agreements work, things like that. So what I can tell you though is how many spirit guides do most of us have? Somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides. Each one of our spirit guides help us with a different area of our life, including our love life. And what do a lot of people want to know is future-based questions. Am I going to meet the man of my dreams? Am I going to this? Am I going to that? And oftentimes our spirit guides, is this relationship that I'm currently in going to work out? All that kind of stuff. But our spirit guides want to give us present moment questions. They want to give you, okay, what can I do right now to be a better spouse? What can I do right now to be a better girlfriend? What can I do right now to be healthier so I can be more present? Or what can I do right now to heal my triggers so that when he upsets me, I don't get upset as much? Things like that. So that's where you're working with your spirit guides is really powerful and can make a real practical difference in your life. Everything that I teach my students, I always try to make it practical. How can this make like a real world life difference? And I use me personally in my life, I use spirituality to help improve my life and make real practical differences in every area of my life. Okay, so same thing with health. What can I do right now to live a healthier life? Maybe I need to exercise more, or maybe I need to exercise less, or maybe I need to have more downtime or do more self-care, take a bath once in a while, get out in nature, eat healthier foods, things like that. So that's how your spirit guides can help you in a very practical ways. But one of the things I'm always cautious about with my students, they're like, oh, am I going to be on Oprah someday? And it's like, no, no, no. Don't ask, are you going to be on Oprah someday? Ask your spirit guides, what can I do right now to eventually get to a point where I'm noticed by somebody like Oprah and maybe potentially get onto Oprah someday. Things like that. So keep trying to turn it back to present moment questions, because your spirit guides want to help you right now in the present, in the moment. And doesn't mean you don't have your long-term goals and aspirations and things you want to achieve, but ask your spirit guides, what can I do right now to help me achieve my long-term goals? What can I do right now to help me achieve my long-term aspirations? Make sense? Okay. So if you have any other questions, please ask. Um, okay, so Ron wants to know, how do we know if it's our spirit guides or our own thoughts? So this is the number one struggle that all my beginner students have, and it's the most common thing. And this is why I create very specific activities and exercises on how to discern the difference. Um, there's a couple of different ways, Ron, and the one of the biggest ways is when you quiet yourself. And this is why I do recommend meditation for my students, is because oftentimes our brain is so noisy. And remember those old school televisions with the white noise, and it'd be like psh, and all that static and all that. Well, oftentimes our minds are so noisy that we can't hear our spirit guides over our own thoughts, or over that noise in our mind. So what I recommend to do is, there's lots of different kinds of meditations out there, and I love them all. Like, I think they're great. Guided meditation, walking meditation, chanting meditation, on and on and on. And yes, I do a lot of those. I love them. But one of my favorite ones is called silent meditation. And what I mean by silence is you don't do anything. So no noise, no guided meditation, no nothing. And the reason why is because, I don't know about you, but it's pretty hard to hear my spirit guides over all that noise, over the guided, someone talking me through a guided meditation or whatever it might be. So what I recommend is to just like go somewhere, sit somewhere quiet, work on calming your mind and calming the ripples of, like, just calming everything. So it's like just all peaceful. And there's a little tip on that is, if you have trouble doing this, and like you notice that your mind's really busy, guess what that means? It means you need to do it more. Hate to, like, it's true. And people are like, oh, I've tried meditation and it doesn't work for me. I'm like, great. There's a saying out there that says, if you tried meditating for 20 minutes and it doesn't work, great, then meditate for an hour. And it's really so true. And I used to have this kind of theory that, meditation was a waste of time because I'm not doing something, I'm not being productive. Meditation is not a waste of time. So what you do is the reason why I'm saying the word meditation so much is because you get good at practicing calming your mind, and then you can discern or identify those subtleties of what's coming from your spirit guide and what's coming from your mind. And as you get good at this, you'll notice, you're like, oh no. So each one of our spirit guides, how many spirit guides do we have? 3 to 5. Okay. Each one of our spirit guides have different energy signature components. So at first, when I was training my students, I thought there was just one thing to do with energy signature. But then over time, I'm like, wait a second, there's actually a lot of different things that can make up our spirit guides' energy signature components. So, for example, they might have different tells. Like, this one might be hot, or like warm temperature. This one might be very thick and solid. This one might be, have a very low voice. This one might speak very like solid and clear and very methodically, and so on and so on. Whereas another guide, if let's say a female guide, this is a male guide in this case, and this is a female guide, has more feminine energy. She might speak in a higher voice. She might be more etheric, more lighter. And don't get me wrong, don't assume because one's a male, one's a female, this is the traits. It's not necessarily. It could be the total opposite way as well. I'm just using this as an example. This spirit guide, she might present herself more like loving and compassionate, where this one's more firm and direct, and so on and so on. So then I can discern the difference not only between my own guides, but then my own thoughts. And I'm like, oh, And then over time, with practice and taking formal channeling training at channelinginc.com or wherever, as you get good at actually taking formal channeling training, you'll be able to discern the difference between your thoughts and your spirit guides. And you'll be able to know, oh, no, I know it's this guide because of these energy signature components. And then another time, another guide comes in and it's like, oh, no, I know it's this female guide because of these different energy signature components and not my own mind, not my own thoughts. Does that answer your question, Ron? Hope it does. And again, if you're watching this, if you have any questions about spirituality, please type them in and I will live channel the answers. This is called the Ask Ken Show. Yeah. And what I notice, like one of the biggest traits about my thoughts is I notice that they're just more like sporadic, more like they're faster, they're quicker, they're all kind of like jumbled and all that. That's one of the most common traits of somebody's own psyche, of somebody's own thoughts. And our spirit guides don't operate that. They're complete opposite of that. And then knowing the difference, being able to discern the difference between our thoughts and our guides takes a little bit of practice, but within a short period of time, you can definitely get good at it. And that's really important. That's the fundamental of channeling. Fundamentals right there is knowing how to discern between your spirit guides and your thoughts and your own self. Okay. And then there's also getting yourself out of the way. That's a whole other topic. Can your higher self, soul, and yourself, can it all be the same or is it different? So think of it like your physical body. Okay. So back, let's say, I don't know, 500 years ago, I'm just making up a random example. 500 years ago, doctors, for example, back then, or whatever you would call it, they didn't really know the difference between the different parts or components of your body, your organs, and things like that. Like they're like, if somebody would go in with a stomach problem, they'd be like, "Oh, I got a stomach problem," but they wouldn't. You know, they would have no idea what parts or whatever was causing the problem. So they were just kind of like, they just didn't know what they didn't know. And then the person maybe would die and then they would do an autopsy. They'd cut the person open. They'd look inside and go, okay, well, there's all this stuff inside, but they don't know what's what. 500 years ago. I'm just using an example. But now with modern technology, as scientists have been able to go, oh, okay, this is the gallbladder and this is the function of the gallbladder and this is the liver and this is the function of the liver and this is the spleen and this is the function of the spleen. And now they know. So when somebody goes in with a stomach problem, in this case, they're struggling with their stomach problem, then the doctor can go in and go, oh, now I know which aspect or component or which organ is causing this problem, and I could go in with very precise instruments and go and heal that. So they make a little hole in the person, they go in with their laser technology, they go bzz, bzz, they zap it or do whatever, or they sew it up, and then they heal that part of the person, and then the person's fine and healthy. Maybe a couple weeks later after recovering from surgery, they're fine and they're even better than they were before. Okay, so what the same kind of thing can happen with spirituality is, so can your higher self, your soul, be all the same or are they different? And the answer is they're all parts of me, but yes, they are different, just like your organs. Your organs are all different parts of you, but they make up who you are in your physical body. So then what I want, the reason why I teach channeling is because I want my students to be precise. And there's power in precision. So just like before, 500 years ago, the doctors didn't know what's going on. So they were kind of guessing or kind of random. They'd just be like, the person would come in with a stomach problem and they'd be like, I don't know, let's try cutting this part out or do this part with that person. But it wouldn't necessarily get the results that they wanted. But now with precision technology, because they know what each component does and what it's for, they can go in there, like doctors, modern medicine can go in there and do the healing very precisely and get the results without affecting all the other aspects in a negative way, detrimental way, and get the results that the client wants or the patient wants. So the same thing with being able to identify your different spiritual aspects is I can say, okay, what does my soul want to tell me? And I know where my soul resides. It's right here, right in your sternum area, right in the seat of your soul. That's where your sternum resides. So what does it want to tell me? So I can focus in on my soul and really get clear messages from my soul, how it wants to guide me, what it wants to tell me, why it's here, how it wants to evolve as a soul. Really, really important things. Okay. And then my higher self, which again resides 1 foot above your head. It also resides in the astral realm, which is where your spirit guides reside, your soul family, things like that, and also the fourth dimension. And that's where your higher self resides. So I can access my higher self when my higher self wants to get my attention. I could focus on my higher self or just see what it wants to say and then communicate with it. Oh, in this case, Ken, this is what's going on in this circumstance. I'm showing you it from this higher perspective, so you know how to handle and manage this circumstance, and also any action steps that I would suggest taking. Your higher self might give you that higher perspective, so that you're not just doing it from earthly 3D terms, and things don't necessarily quite work out right, or in a good healthy way for you, for them, or anyone. But accessing your higher self is really powerful because your higher self has that overview, higher perspective of what's really going on in the circumstance, and then can give you really good advice and suggestions and guidance on how to handle this, so that it's a win-win kind of situation for everybody. Okay, so this is how you can definitely learn to tap into your different components and aspects. So Carol from Australia has a great question, is how do you know when you are channeling messages? Ooh, great question, Carol. Okay, so again, the most important thing about channeling, there's the two most important things about channeling is, one is always know the source of where you're getting the information from. And the second most important thing about channeling is knowing how you're getting that information. And the reason why you want to know how you're getting that information is because, again, when you know how and you're precise and you're specific, then you can you can go deeper with that how, with that, okay, in this way, my guide is trying to communicate with me clairaudient. And so, it's clairaudient. So I can go deeper and deeper using the clairaudient way of communicating with this guide. Whereas this other guide, my female guide, she's trying to communicate with me through clairsentient, through emotions. So I'm going to drop into my heart center, into my body, because that's where our emotions are. It's in our body, not in our head. So I drop into my body, and then I communicate with her through my emotions, and I go deeper and deeper of how to communicate with her using emotions, because that's how she wants to communicate with me. So the question is, how do I know if messages are coming from, if I'm channeling messages? Always know the source of where you're getting the information from. So in channeling level 2, I actually practice this with my students. I have them practice this where they're actually channeling other people's spirit guides. But I need them to get really good at channeling their own guides, so that they know their own guides and they know who's their own guides. And then this way, when they come across someone who's not their guides, they go, oh, wait a second. This is somebody else's guides or another kind of soul. And I know that because they're not my guides. These are my guides, and I know them really well. And I know their energy signature components that I talked about earlier. And that's how I know when it's coming from somewhere besides my spirit guides or my soul or my higher self. So there's a lot of different things we can channel in a good way, and they could be messages that come through us. One of them is we could channel other people's spirit guides. We could channel other people's loved ones. We could channel angels and pass messages through them. We could also channel the person's soul and give messages, soul readings. And we could also channel their higher self readings, and so on and so on. So there's lots of different sources or places we can get the channeling or the information from. But the most important thing is what? Always know where you're getting the information from. And why do you want to always know where you're getting the information from? Is because in the ideal world, everything would be all love and light. Unfortunately, I haven't found it to be that way. There are once in a while things that are not of the light that might come across your path. And if they do try to sneak in and do some, detrimental kind of things or whatever, or be deceptive and all that, you can identify it. And then okay, you don't want to listen to those things because they will take you off your path, or they will take them off their path, and so on. So you definitely do not want to work with them. And those are techniques that I teach my students how to do and what to do in channeling level 2. So if you're interested in learning how to channel at really advanced levels, please go to channelinginc.com. I would suggest signing up either for a one-on-one channeling and healing session with me, attending one of my intro classes, intro channeling workshop, intro animal communication workshop, or jumping straight into my channeling level 1 certification program, where you'll get like a 50+ page manual that comes with it. It's probably the most comprehensive and thorough channeling training you can get anywhere. And my name is Ken Lewicki. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, please message me. Also, if you have any questions or anything you want me to live channel for the upcoming Ask Ken show, which is the 4th Wednesday of every month, just message me and I will add it to my list, and we can answer those next time. Have a great day, everyone. Love you, and we will see you soon.